As we open up this new year, I want to start this sermon just with a very short story, because we're looking at this new year, and we're going to be looking at this idea of habits that we form, the things that really shape us. But I have this just short story that I read recently to kind of give us a picture, a framework for what we'll be seeing this morning. Two young fish. Not based on a true story, were swimming, and they ran across an older fish. And the older fish sees the two young fish and says, "Hey, boys, how's the water today?" And they kind of smile awkwardly at him, and they just kind of go, "Fine." And they swim on. And there's kind of some awkward silence between the two fish as they're swimming along. They're kind of just thinking about what the old fish said. And then finally, one of them breaks the silence and looks at the other fish, and he goes, "What the heck is water?" The thing is, for us, is that we are all living according to habits and rhythms in our life that we don't even see or notice, yet we swim in it every single day. But we take these rhythms, these habits, these idiosyncrasies, we take them for granted, so much so that we don't even recognize them, even though these things are the very air that we breathe or the water that we swim in. They're the things that sustain us throughout our day. And yet, even though these things are right in front of us, we do them every single day, we don't recognize them. We don't recognize the water that we just do it. We don't question our habits. We take them for granted. We just swim along. We never think twice about so many things we do in a given day. There was a Duke University study that found that 40% of all that we do in a single day is based out of habit. 40%. Almost half of all your decisions that you make in a day, this study found, is just out of a habit. You just do it. That might sound crazy because we think to ourselves, there's no way. I make my own decisions every day. I make conscious decisions every single day, deliberate choices. There's no way that 40% of my choices in a given day are just out of a habit, some mindless routine that I do. But church, just because you can't see your habits, or just because you haven't purposely cultivated your habits, does not mean you don't have them. They're there. You swim in it every day. You just don't see it. All it means is that something else, or maybe someone else, has chosen the habits for you. You haven't actually deliberately chosen many of the habits that you swim in every day. But somehow you found yourself there. Something or someone else introduced you to those habits, and you just slowly slipped into those habits without even knowing it. Maybe it's your friends, or it's social media, or your own sinful desires, or your boss, or your family. Something or someone roped you into so many of the habits that you are in today. The reality is, for us, habits form our hearts. Habits form us. They shape us. It is the very water we swim in, even if we don't see it. So every year at our church, we start off with what's usually a 3-week sermon series, usually on the vision, mission, and strategy of the church. Why do we exist as a church? What do we need to do as a church and as a Christian? And how we're going to do it. Sometimes we just focus on one of those. It's kind of a part of our overall habit or routine as a church, kind of an annual routine we do. Because a new year is a good time to kind of recalibrate our GPS, our gospel positioning strategy, take inventory of our life, see if we're moving in the direction that we want to be. And this year, the next few weeks, we're going to be focusing particularly on the strategy. How do we plan to live out the mission that God has called us to live out? And I know that many of us don't speak in that language. You don't go around in your regular life as a family saying like, oh, the vision of our family, the mission of our family. I know many of us don't operate in that. We don't swim in that kind of water. We don't use those kinds of words, but that doesn't mean you're not doing it. The reality is that every single one of you is living out some vision for your life. It might not be a very clear one. Maybe you haven't thought it out too much, but you're on a mission. It just might be muddy water. But you have a mission. You want something in life. And you have a strategy of getting it. Again, it might not be a very good strategy. Maybe you haven't thought it out too much. Maybe it's more intuitive. But something in you is driving the decisions you make with your calendar, with your money, with your relationships. Something's driving you. So even if you don't use the language, vision, mission, strategy, you're already doing it. And so we want to be taking this time, the next few weeks, Today, we're going to be looking specifically at how these habits shape us. Because, church, the reality is your habits form you more than you form your habits. Your habits form you more than you're actually making up your own habits. So I want to pray, and we'll jump into Romans chapter 12 and just see what the Lord has for us this morning as we kick off this new year in this sermon series. Father, we thank you again just for your faithfulness towards us. We thank you for your word. And as we jump into Romans 12, I hope and pray that we see that the way that we live out our life, the decisions we make, everything we're doing is an act of worship. It is us either choosing to put ourselves on the altar as a living sacrifice, or it's being conformed to the world. It's one or the other. So help us to see in your word that your word would convict us, challenge us, and encourage us to take more control over the habits that we swim in every day. So we thank you, Lord, for the power of your word, the power of the gospel in our lives. We ask all these things in the mighty name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Paul here says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Church, you were not born to worship. You were born worshiping. Worship is something you do because it is your function in life. You don't turn it on and then turn it off. You're either offering your body as a living sacrifice to God, or you're being conformed to the image of the world. You're worshiping regardless of what you're doing. We don't just say, oh, I'm worshiping now and then now I'm not. I'm just doing life. No. We are formed, we are created as worshipers. It is active all the time. We are always worshiping. Maybe you, for instance, as an analogy, take breathing. Maybe you can think about your breathing. You can take a deep breath. I can hold my breath. I can be specific about my breathing, but just because I'm not thinking about my breathing doesn't mean I'm not breathing. I'm breathing all the time. It's just that sometimes I'm breathing in a more specific way. That's what worship is. You are worshiping all the time, all throughout your day, starting the moment you wake up. Maybe you have certain times you're worshiping differently in your time of prayer, your time reading the word, or maybe it's even your idolatry. You're worshiping things like money and comfort in a particular way. But just because you're not thinking about worship doesn't mean you're not worshiping, just like breathing. And there's so many ways that we're not purposely worshiping, but the reality is that someone or something is receiving your adoration. Something is receiving your service, your mind, your commitment. Every single moment of your life, something is receiving your mind and your heart. And maybe that thing or person that's receiving your thoughts and your adoration is yourself, your own comfort. So Paul here, he appeals to us to present ourselves, our whole selves, including our habits, as a living sacrifice and offering of worship. And so he contrasts that with what would happen if we don't do this. He says, we'll be conformed to the world. So it's either or. We're either going to be worshiping God or worshiping the image of the world. This world will shape us. If we don't have our minds transformed by making our whole lives, including our habits, a living sacrifice, we will be giving in to what the world tells us will be bringing us happiness. We'll be giving in to and serving our own selves. To use the water analogy again, we'll be swimming with the current of culture mindlessly, simply because that's where the current is taking us. We don't question what we do at school or at work, whatever, because it's what everyone does. We're like, what the heck is water? What are you talking about? We don't question these things. We just do them. So often we just go along with what is deemed normal in our culture and what's normal among our friends. Instead, we ought to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Paul's speaking here of conforming and transforming. He's speaking of being shaped by something. He tells us that the things we give ourselves to are the things that shape us. Your habits form you more than you form your habits. They shape you. There's a guy named Charles Duhigg, who's an author who studied the science and psychology of habit. He said, when a habit is formed, the brain stops fully participating in your decision-making. The patterns we have unfold automatically because of repetition. It's fascinating stuff, but he says that the brain activity during habits happens in the deepest part of the brain, which is called the basal ganglia. And in this part of the brain, it's kind of like a storage locker for energy and for habits. It saves us a lot of mental energy and other thoughts. It saves us a lot of work. It's like a reserve tank for us. Part of our brain shuts down and it goes into this reserve tank to conserve this other useful energy that the rest of your brain has. This is why you can be thinking about something intense that's happening at work, and you can drive home and you get home and you go, how did I get here? It's because your mind, your body is almost saying, hey, look, we'll take over, we'll get you home. You need to think about more important things. We got this. That's what your body is telling you. So this is a good thing. It's kind of like autopilot. It's how our body is designed to function. These habits are like autopilot, so we can attend to other needs, maybe things that are more important. This is a good thing. Also can be a bad thing. It's also why sometimes when you need to go to the store, you get off at your exit for home, even though the store is the next exit. Because if you're thinking about something at work, you just do the habit. And you go, oh, I was supposed to go to the next exit, get out at the store. Our unconscious habits form us just as much, if not more, as our conscious habits. The habits you don't even know you're doing, that water you're swimming in, you don't even recognize, they form you probably even more than the ones you purposely do. If it's true, or even close, that 40% of our daily life is acted upon by habit, it should cause us to think about what this 40% is. What am I doing throughout my day that I'm not even thinking about? What is the water that I swim in that I don't even see? Is it my social media scrolling? Is it my morning routine, or what I do when my phone vibrates? Or how I respond to annoyances and inconveniences? What is our default? What is our habits? We'd like to think that we have carefully and thoughtfully, with all discernment, chosen and cultivated all of our habits. But we'd be fools to think that. Most likely, we slipped into habits. They happened to us, and we took it hook, line, and sinker. What I mean by that someone or something else has chosen your habits, because clearly you're a participant in choosing the habits. You've made the choice to start a habit. It just deepens. But what I mean by that is that there's people that sit in rooms and figure out how to get you addicted to your phones. It's their job to do that. So they are trying to determine your habits. They know how to hook you in, and they're paid to do it. So these are the people who are actually the masterminds behind how do we get people to form habits. Now, you've got to be the one to first click on that clickbait. So yes, you're an active participant in forming your habits, but you don't know where they're trying to take you. And so you just slowly fall for their little scheme. They know that, you ever wonder why all of your notifications are red? The science behind it shows, red means emergency. I need to click, I need to answer that right away. They know these things. They know that a little hit of dopamine goes in your brain as soon as you hear that phone vibrate or see that little red dot. They know that your brain is active in this. It's not just, let's just use any color, let's do anything. No, they know what's going on. Advertisers for decades have been telling us what we need, what we deserve, why it's going to make our life better. I saw an article the other day. It was the most important stories of the year. Number one was the return of J-Lo. I'm like, I didn't even know she was gone. I don't know where she went. Yeah, the other one was, I promise you, the other one was Keanu Reeves is still nice. I don't even know what that means. But that was one of the biggest stories of 2019. Who decides this for us? But yet you read those headlines and go, oh, that must be important. I'm out of the loop. What's Keanu Reeves been up to? I don't even know. Where's J-Lo been? Now we got to find out. Someone else is dictating to us what the most important events of 2019 are. Now, a lot of us look at that and we just go, that's stupid. But some of us go, oh, where's she been? We've got to find out. I love J-Lo. So someone else is deciding for you what's important in your life. The media, whether it's on the far left or far right or somewhere between, they're telling us how we should think and react to current events. People are commenting and dictating how we think. My family and I, we were watching the Beatles a couple nights ago, some of their first appearances on, they had Ed Sullivan, right? Show. It was just so cool just to watch them and just, whatever. But I was telling the boys, I said, these guys were controversial back then. You know why? Because they got long hair that goes down about here. And they're seriously, we're looking at this going like, what has happened to culture? Why was that just a few decades ago, that was so controversial? Now that's a joke. Those guys, they're wearing a suit and tie for crying out loud. Like how are these guys bad boys? But over time, culture has slowly shifted, and we've just bought it. Somehow, the Beatles is nothing to us. But I didn't choose that. But I believe it. I believe that that's actually really wholesome, but I'm looking and going, how was that considered controversial? I didn't choose that, but yet I swim in that water. Certain things don't shock me, and that's unfortunate. Certain things don't shock me because I've grown up in this culture. Someone else chose my mindset in so many things. And so like the water that these fish swim in, we don't even think or recognize some of these things. We just go with the flow. Life, culture, media, friends, demands, something else trains us in how we see life and what we do. And all these things radically shape us. They shape our days, our weeks, our minds, our hearts, our responses. And as Paul points out, they conform us. They transform our brains. They conform us into the image of the world. This is why we ought to instead think of habits as liturgy. Now, I know that liturgy is a word that we don't use a whole lot in our subculture of Christianity, kind of, American, 21st century, California, non-denominational church. We don't use this word liturgy a whole lot. We kind of think it's a stuffy word. You hear it more along the lines of maybe in Catholic or Anglican or Lutheran or Presbyterian, other kind of older denominations. They use that word liturgy a lot more. But it is a beautiful word, an important word that is so helpful for us if we can think of our life and the way we live in this term of liturgy. Because like habits, even though we don't use the word liturgy often, we absolutely live out liturgy every single day. Now, to give you a definition, this is in your notes. If you're not familiar with this word, which I'm sure a lot of you aren't, liturgy is a pattern of actions done repeatedly as an act of worship or in order to facilitate worship. Usually we use this word in the context of a church service or a church calendar. Maybe you've heard of a liturgical calendar. But in a church service, I'll just give you an example. Because in our church, we have a liturgy. We don't spell it out. It's maybe not obvious because it doesn't look like a bigger, older denomination. But we have a liturgy. And you guys could probably recite it for me. Whoever's leading worship opens in prayer. Do a little welcome, open in prayer. Usually play about 3 songs. Oftentimes, somewhere in the middle there, we have someone read a scripture. After that, usually Eric comes up, kind of shares a bit of the vision. We do the offering. You know the drill, right? So that's our liturgy. It's a pretty similar pattern most weeks. If you came next week and we did communion first thing, you'd be like, whoa, what's going on? Not that there's anything wrong with doing communion first, but you're used to the liturgy of Life Mission Church. So we have a liturgy. We don't do necessarily like sit, stand, kneel, and, open up to, page 342. We're going to read that hymn. We don't do it like that, but we have a liturgy. And so a liturgy is just a habit or a pattern that either is worship or facilitates worship. We choose the liturgy of this church in order to hopefully facilitate the most effective worship that we can as a church congregation every single week. We don't just say, hey, we need some songs to fill in some time and let's throw in a prayer. No, we choose the elements of our church service specifically to facilitate worship. It is a very specific liturgy that we choose, even though we don't spell it out. It doesn't look all that concrete for us. Other churches are more outwardly, maybe more liturgical than ours, but we are no less liturgical than they are. We just don't look like it as much. So also in life. Now, just a couple examples from my life. There's a few liturgical things. And again, you might not use these words, but I kind of think we should. In my life, we pray every night as a family. We have a weekly Bible study with friends. We have our Saturday off. That's our family day. I have a general pattern of study. I kind of get started a little bit on Mondays, kind of gather some thoughts for the next sermon. Tuesday is kind of a big study day. Wednesday, I don't do any studying. It's mostly a lot of appointments. Kind of give myself, my brain, the day off to kind of let soak in what I've been studying. Then Thursday is a big study day for me. I'll still have appointments, but they're usually like just maybe one or two. But that's kind of a bigger day of study for me. Friday, I finish up the handout notes, send it to Brian. And then from Friday afternoon all the way through Saturday, I don't even think about the sermon. I say this is Saturday's my day off to be with my family. That is part of my liturgical week. Then Saturday night around 10 o'clock, I usually just kind of do a run through, make some adjustments. But that's just kind of part of my pattern of life. In your notes here, there's a guy named Justin Earley who wrote a fantastic book who actually was what really kind of motivated me, inspired me, and excited me to focus on this in the new year. He says this in his book called The Common Rule that I'd recommend you pick up. He says, the difference between habit and liturgy is that we actually admit that liturgy is for the purpose of worship. That's really the only difference. Your habit is an active act of worship. It's just that the word liturgy admits it. Liturgy and habit really is kind of the same thing. It's just that with liturgy, we're saying this is specifically for worship, even though habit also is. So think about it. What if you called all of your habits, not just your spiritual ones, okay, not just reading the Bible and praying, but what if you called all of your habits, your social media scrolling, your choice of, how much TV or movies you watch in a week, or how you act in traffic. What if you called all of your habits liturgies? Like, I am worshiping right now in traffic. What am I worshiping? My own convenience? What my boss is going to think when I'm late? What am I worshiping right now? My response is revealing my heart right now. What if we actually called our habits liturgies? If liturgy is a pattern of worship or a habit of facilitating worship, now start thinking through, what is your daily liturgy or habit of worship? When you check your notifications before you read the Bible in the morning, or pray, or get mad during traffic, or snack when you're bored. What is your liturgy when you're bored? Think of these things not as habits, but as liturgy. Habits of worship. These things are patterns that we repeat every single day. If you think of them as habits or patterns of worship, it sheds some light on some of the driving force of your habits, doesn't it? You go, man, why do I do these habits? Well, there's something I want. There's something I want. Something that I want so badly that I've formed and agreed to a habit in order that I get that thing. Something is driving the heart of that habit. So this helps us realize that our actions, our decisions, our reactions are not just neutral. And that's what we think of habits. We think of habits as mindless actions. So we think they're neutral. They're not neutral. You're on autopilot, but you are in gear going somewhere with your habits. Where are you going? Who are you going to? What are you going to? You're never neutral in your worship. You are always worshiping something or someone. And so looking back at what Paul said, he goes, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, present your bodies, including your habits. Present your bodies and your habits, even the mindless things you do with your bodies, present them as a living sacrifice. Put those habits on the altar. Say, I want to use my habits to worship you, O Lord. Give them to God as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Some translations say your reasonable act of worship. It's a reasonable thing to say, God, I want my habits to glorify you. He says, don't be conformed to this world, including your habits. Don't let your habits be conformed to the world. Media, devices, screens. Don't let your habits be conformed to the world, but rather be transformed by the renewal of your mind, and the renewal then also of your habits. If your habits is part of your mind, even if it's that deepest part of your mind, even our minds and our habits need to be transformed and renewed so that by testing, you can discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Our habits are part of our daily, weekly, monthly, and even annual liturgy of our life. Some of you have an annual liturgy of going on a vacation, maybe over Christmas or over summer. We have patterns of life to pursue the things that we desire, the things we adore. It's the water we swim in each and every day and every week, every month. You and I just don't see it. Liturgy is the water that we swim in, church. We don't want to be like those two fish that go, what the heck are you talking about? I'm not worshiping. I'm just living life. No. You are swimming in the water of liturgy every single day. You're worshiping all through the day of every decision you make. I've called these habits spiritual reps, repetitions. It's easy to relate that to physical reps. You start off small with lighter weights, fewer reps, smaller goals, smaller gains, but then you're building. If you have bad form, you're only going to get better at bad form if you keep doing spiritual reps or even physical reps with bad form. So these reps that we do, we have to either correct bad habits with new habits, starting small, starting with less reps, but over time it becomes muscle memory. All of a sudden, your mind, that part of your brain, that deepest, that little think tank, that reserve tank, now all of a sudden, that is actually facilitating worship of Jesus. Because your muscle memory just goes to reacting differently to different things. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, Paul says, have nothing to do with irreverent, silly myths. In other words, in our language, he's saying, stay away from those kinds of bad habits. Gossip, just going along with what people are talking about. Have nothing to do with that. Rather, instead, train yourself. Equip yourself. Discipline yourself for godliness. Even your habits, put them on the altar to be a living sacrifice. Train your habits for godliness. While bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way because it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. Your habits shape not just this life, but also the life to come. This saying is trustworthy and deserving of full acceptance. For to this end we toil and strive because we have our hope set on the living God, who is the Savior of all people, especially of those who believe. I need to mention a particular lie that is going to come up more in the next few weeks, but I want us to be thinking about this. We believe this particular lie of freedom and choices. We love and we worship even our freedom and have multiple choices. I love choices. Whenever I go to a restaurant, I want the sampler. I want to try everything. I love choices. But we have this love for having options in life. But let me frame this, again, going back to liturgy of a church. What if we gave freedom and options first place in our Sunday morning service? Would we allow announcements for things like garage sales? Or would we maybe spend Sunday morning watching a Christian movie instead of a sermon? Because hey, that's a great Christian movie, great story. Would we just maybe bring in a Christian comedian sometime just to kind of change things up a bit? No, we don't need more options in our liturgy, church. We need to be more selective. And this is why we do church the way we do church, because we're saying these are the elements that are the most formative for our church family. So in our life then, our problem is we have far too many choices. So when the choice comes between reading the Word in the morning or checking in on the news or checking our notifications, we've got way too many choices. We go, there's so many good things I could do this morning. Well, I'm going to do that. I can get to that other thing later. When we have choices, we usually don't choose the right thing. Our intentional liturgy always limits what we do. If we have an intentional liturgy, we're saying, I want to have my habits transformed. Well, you're going to necessarily have to limit your choices if you're going to do that. Because if you have all the same choices, it's going to be hard for you to say, I'm going to really set out to do this thing. I recently started coaching high school baseball, and we were doing 3 workouts per week, and then Christmas break was upon us. Whenever I go, the boys always want to work out more. They always want to have more practices. They just act like that's all they want to do is just baseball, and the school thing's just getting in the way. Well, we had a 3-week break because of Christmas. We had our first practice on Friday. I asked them, how many of you guys did some baseball stuff over the Christmas break? Guess how many did it? 1. Of our whole team. All of a sudden, they've got all the choices in the world. They're not going to school. They've got the whole day ahead of them, 2 or 3 weeks off, and they've got choices. They can't do anything because they have too many choices. See, when I'm there, I could just sit there. We're in the weight room. I have a plan. I've got kind of a liturgy for them. Say, here's what we're going to be working on today. If I just say, hey, go and work out, do whatever, it's going to be far less effective. But when we have someone else or something that's kind of holding our feet to the fire, that's helping us form these habits, if we have a pared down liturgy that says, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to cut out. Yeah, there's other things we could do that are great. We can work on pitching. We could work on, legs. We can do all these things, but we're going to do this today. When we pare down those things and we are intentional with our liturgy and our habits, that's when we become more effective. That's when we start transforming and we start seeing real results. But we have to cut back on things. This is why we love our phones, because our phones give us options. We can talk to anyone we want at any time. Someone's boring us, we can start texting someone else who's more interesting. I mean, we love our options, but if we want to be more intentional and really steer our hearts how we want to have it steered, not how the media, not how pop culture, not how friends or anything else, but if we want to make our own choices to form our habits that transform our minds, to be living sacrifices for Christ, we have to cut out things in our life. We have to be far more intentional and limiting in our options. This is what a true liturgy does. We have to have planned neglect. So going back to Romans 12 as we close this up, I just want to read it again for us. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, present your bodies, your choices, your decisions, your patterns, your habits, your liturgies. Present them as a living sacrifice to God Almighty, the one who died for you. Be able to present those habits to him and say, this habit, Lord, is for you. I glorify you in this habit. I want it to be holy and acceptable to God. This habit, I want to be acceptable to you. I want to see the water that I'm swimming in. And I want to be able to show it to you and say, I'm doing this for you. This is your spiritual act of worship, church. What you do with your bodies, conscious or unconscious, what you do with your bodies is your spiritual act of worship. It's either to God or it's to the image of the world, or yourself, or comfort, or any other number of idols. So don't be conformed to this world. Don't let the world form your habits. Don't let the world do this. Don't let your own sinful heart do this. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, so that by testing you can discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. The result of doing this, church, by looking for the water in our life and making these adjustments and fighting against the bad habits, the result is that we will know the will of God. How many of you guys want to know the will of God? I want to know the will of God. But we can't get there if we're just going with the flow, swimming with the current. So next week and the following weeks, we're going to be looking at our next steps, how to begin forming this liturgy and reforming and transforming our current liturgy, how to pursue the renewal of our minds. In the meantime, I just want you to ask yourself this week, maybe with family or friends or your community group, what is the water that you swim in every day? You've probably not thought about it until today. I know for me, I just want to tell you guys that today and the next few weeks, I've kind of been dreading this sermon series. You guys know I preach to myself every Sunday, but I'm preaching to myself. I've been fearful of this sermon series for 3 months, going, I don't want to do this one. Okay, so, because I'm starting to see water that I swim in that I didn't see before. And it's good. It is good. So I want you to go home. I want you to ask your friends, your family, your kids, your spouse, your community group. I've been thinking about it for a couple of days. I realized I'm swimming in this water, guys. I didn't even know it. And then they're all going to look at you like, yeah, we all knew that already. But that's good. We need community to help us out. We cannot do this alone. Church, we can do this together. We can pray for each other, and we can do this together. We can see 2020 be a whole new year for us. A whole new year, a whole new outlook of life where we say our life is a liturgy to God our Father, Jesus our Savior, Spirit our guide. Let us live a life as liturgy. So I hope you're excited for the next 3 weeks, kind of the fearful excitement that I have. I think it's going to be just a great way to kick off our year, a great way just to look and take this inventory and say, God, I want to be transformed by the renewal of my mind. I want my habits and the water I swim in to be transformed. Let's pray. Father in heaven, if today's time in your word was anything for my church family here, that it was for me in my time studying this and taking inventory, I think that probably many people here are maybe a little spun. For me, just a light bulb goes on in my head, shines into dark parts of my heart. To use the brain picture, it shines a light into the basal ganglia of my mind. Things that I'm doing subconsciously, I don't even recognize. I don't even see. It's just water that I've just been taking for granted. Seeing so many things in my life that they just happen. I've become a passive participant in worship, and yet I'm responsible for that worship. I can't blame the people in the back rooms trying to figure out how to bring addiction to social media. I can't blame the advertisers. No, I've believed their lies. I believe the narrative that they're dictating to me, and I've been swimming in that water, not even seeing it. Lord, I pray that by the power of your Spirit and the clarity of your word, that you would shine light into these habits, these liturgies of our life, this water that we swim in. Help us to see and feel and encounter and really recognize the water we swim in. And let us analyze and put it on trial. Is this glorifying the Lord or is this not? Help us as a church to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. This is a process. This is long-term. This isn't going to happen in a little sermon series. But we want to start the hard work of seeing first, recognizing, and then just trusting you to be transformed, pursuing, doing the hard work of training ourselves for the purpose of godliness. Help us, O Lord. We love you. We thank you for your word this morning. We thank you for our church family. It's in your mighty name we pray. Amen.